Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to another Marvel Zombies Zombicide crossover video. So I've done a series of these already. And in case you haven't watched them or any of them, the quick point of what I want to do here is I want to take the content from Marvel Zombie and see how well it fits with the other Zombicide games. Do the tiles link together? Can you use them that way? How well do the tokens, are they transferable back and forth? What do the minis look like in that? More so as the idea is to see playing as Marvel Zombies, whether you're playing as the zombie characters or you're playing as the hero versions, the living versions versus zombies. What can you take from the other Zombicide games and bring into Marvel to like expand it? So in this video, we're going over the Black Plague, Green Horde, the fantasy series. So this would be like the swords and sorcery, medieval type era stuff. So what we kind of want to do is we want to say like, hey, what can we bring into like medievalized Marvel zombies? Now, I've done videos for the classic Zombicide, which is first edition, and second edition, which are both set in the modern settings, the same as Marvel Zombies. And they tend to fit the best. You can check out that video because they're both cities, so like the math fit together. Now, all the rest of the sets, they don't thematically immediately fit together because the city tiles don't work right away with the Western or the sci-fi or the fantasy tiles, which we'll see kind of when we look at them. But also another big, just like quick on that, it's like, are they directly compatible? All the Zombicide games, whether it's the Marvel ones or any of the other ones, share the same basic rules. The tiles each have different spots you can go through. The characters, your survivors have so many actions they can perform. They have line of sight. There's a spawn deck. They spawn guys each turn. Sometimes the spawns work a little bit differently. It's like earlier ones, they spawn when you open doors. Newer ones, like Marvel and some of the other ones, they have spawn points. And then some have other little additional twists and turns there to make each game a little bit more unique. But those overall basic rules are the same. The two bigger differences really between Marvel Zombies and the rest of them are, one is you can play as zombies, full-on zombies, not just like zombified versions of characters. So they have different mechanics, and they're trying to eat living people instead of fighting zombies. Although there's no reason why you couldn't have them fight zombies as well. The rules and gameplay would all work the same. And that's the core of the core Marvel Zombie. If you pick up the Resistance packs, it lets you play as the heroic versions or the living versions to fight against zombies. So that becomes more of a traditional mix and match. So lots of the times I'll be kind of looking at that as like, if I'm playing as those living hero characters, what can I take from the fantasy series? How can I have them fighting that? But again, you can always have the zombie characters fight them as well. Nothing wrong with that. The other difference is how the cards and the characters work themselves. Traditional Zombicide, whether it's classic, second edition, Western, sci-fi, whatever, the survivors have decks of equipment they have to find. So they have to search the location, search the tiles to find items. They get little cards, they get different weapons, like this one's obviously like swords and crossbows, but they're also going to get access to magic, which is unique to the fantasy series. But they have to draw these to gain different types of attacks. They have melee attacks, ranged attacks, and then the skills on the survivors, lots of times are just like plus the range or plus damage or plus rolling dice, with some of the abilities being like, movement abilities or very more simplistic things like that. Occasionally, sometimes have some like surprise ones that do some extra stuff. But a lot of times it's just they get extra things, extra actions, extra dice, extra damage, extra movement, things like that. The Marvel characters, they get a little bit more. They only get one attack that they always have. They don't get to switch up their attacks. Their skills, though, tend to give them a little bit varied abilities. Plus, they also have the ability to earn action points. So, you can't... And I'm only bringing this up basically to say, you can't directly just take the Marvel zombie characters, hero or zombie version, and throw them into a game of Zombicide, Black Plague, or vice versa, because one side would have more, like Marvel characters have a lot more power typically, so they might win. They might win a little bit easier. Now again, the zombies stay the same; they do the same idea, but so I mean, you could throw them into just Black Plague and just play just Black Plague. But I mean, if you're trying to cross them over, the thing that would happen is the survivor characters, you then also have to have their decks of cards out and stuff too, which you could definitely do. Have them out, 2 players playing as the zombie side characters, another player playing as a Marvel character. You just have to have extra decks of cards out. They would also have to stop and do extra different actions, and so it's possible. It's just not immediately just like grabbing a character, throwing it in. They're going to play the exact same. But that's even the same though if you take fantasy and you put it in modern, because the fantasy characters use magic, so their skills wouldn't like link up to the deck of cards from modern. You'd almost have to have a deck for each different genre. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to first go over, look at the tiles, see how the tiles different, go over the unique things that Black Plague has that can be brought into Marvel. Then we'll hop into kind of the components a little bit, look at some of the different tokens and things that can be added there, and then finally we'll go over a bunch of the different miniatures, and see what the miniatures can bring, and we'll just talk about different things. If you've watched all my other videos, this is going to be a lot of the same stuff, just fantasy version of it. So if you've already seen it, you may not want to watch this unless you just want to see the Matrix, but you can always go watch my unboxings for that instead. Alright, so let's hop into this. So first off, here's one of our typical Marvel tiles. We have our street zones, we have the crosswalks that denote the different spaces, the things. So one thing the Marvel set has that most of the other Zombicide sets don't do is they have doors. So the characters have to go through doors. They do have door tokens, and we'll go over that when we get to the token section. But that's just one thing I know, is they'll have doors built in, so you can either just ignore those and pretend they don't exist, or you can have and put the tokens down. Those are the ones you have to use, type of idea. Now it's on the board. They have 2 different symbols on lots of the tiles. You have either exclamation point or a person. The person where you put cards down for bystanders. These are the various Marvel support characters, Mary Jane, Nick Fury, J. Jonah Jameson, stuff like that you have to rescue. Or if you're a zombie character, you're trying to capture and eat. And so those are various cards there. And then the exclamation points are your objectives. As you put down an objective token on the board and you have to find it. So the other game tiles don't always have those. Here's another example of a different tile. So, alright, we have that. So now we're going to look at one of our standard fantasy tiles. So here's a standard fantasy tile. We have, a street zone. We have a room. Now, this one is definitely different than the rest of the games, because some of the other games, still just have an opening of where a door is. It just won't have a physical door printed on the map, like the Western tiles. It's just like, that's open in the building. You can see this is where you walk in. Now, these don't, so you have to put a door tile in on anywhere you want to go. So assuming, basically, this room is not accessible at all, except from these outside points from a different room, then you have to literally put a door tile on the board to access it. So it's one thing to keep in mind, that you're going to have to put door tiles down to get these, but it also, means that you obviously can't enter if there's not a door. But here's the thing, if we put these tiles together, so here's another building side, we'll look at that quick. This is one thing I do love that this game did, and some of the other core or base set Zombicides didn't do. Even Marvel doesn't do this as much, is here's one big giant room, and then here's one street tile. So there's only 4 zones on this tile. Versus lots of the other ones, they tend to stick with the same format. They have, 2 roads and then a building in the middle, which could be, 1 or 2 spaces. And then they have like a corner with like 4 spaces. And you're going to see out a lot of the different Marvel ones if we just kind of flip through some of them quick. So like middle, street, corner. I think it's, yeah, not exactly the same tile. I get something like this. It's a little bit different, like one street on the side, and there's a corner, so it's a little bit different. Or you get like a square tile in the middle. Now you get like that, so it's very, very similar, which has like one street spot on the bottom. But instead of having one open room, it has 4 different tile sets on there. Yeah, corner space, so it gets only 3 rooms, but it's a lot of corner spaces. You know, or they're like U-shaped. Or they're one side with like a couple of big rooms, usually 3 to 4 big rooms. So that's kind of how the Marvel one goes. The fantasy one does away with that. Like, see right away, we already got like Z shapes in here. So you're already going to be adding some more twists and turns in this map right off the bat. So if I even grab just 2 tiles right away, and we're just looking at, I'm going to grab 4 random tiles and just throw them down. I'm going to kind of look at what. So yeah, like here's 4 tiles right here for the Black Plague set, which is the original core fantasy series. Now we have like a room sitting here by itself, but now look, we have all these different streets you can go around and stuff like that. You're not getting that marble. So if we grab 4 random marble tiles and we try and put them together, what ends up happening is, this is one thing, like, I think fantasy has a little bit more open-ended on how you do stuff. Because here, I almost have to line the streets up, together to get them to fit. Like, you could put a building like this as well, but then the corner gets kind of weird and kind of odd. So you're kind of almost having to either line all the streets up, and then you end up like, so this one's not going to really fit in there now, because if I put it like that, it doesn't line up with the top one. I could put it like this, and we could just have a street going into there, so that doesn't work. That works okay, but it's a little kind of odd. But, like, that's sort of how this works. Now, you could always turn these guys and have this be one big giant building. That's not even 100% because there's a little spot down there. But there's a little less, like, navigation. You kind of have more straight line streets going up and down, which does make this fantasy one a little bit more unique on how its maps work. Because you're going to get, like, these different areas. Now, even, like, if I just take 2 of these, I'm going to just rotate these 2 around. Now, just happening because of this, now this looks a little bit more goofy, because you still have that and this street coming down here, but now you have, so down here you have, like, a street that goes to a dead end, street that goes to a dead end. So, like, maybe this isn't the best tile for this spot, but that's easy, like, swap out. So now you get some like this where, like, okay, now we have a straight stretch down to this way, and then this kind of walks off, or you could flip this over and have, I mean, it's not going to always 100% because I have a street tile running into a building, but that could just be a dead end, right? So a bunch of different options there. We'll look at these tiles a little bit more in just a second here. But what I wanted to do is put one of these tiles next to a marble tile. So the problem is, because we don't have straight roads like that, they're not going to line up exactly. They're still going to have the 9 squares, essentially, even though some get broke up in different sizes and lengths. But because we don't have just a general one-sided street here, they don't always line up as well. So if we took this one here, and we flipped it to, I'll grab one of these big buildings here. So like this. So here we have 2 street tiles, fantasy model. Obviously, artwork is very different. So they're not going to sit there, if you try and play, like, aesthetically or looking at it, they're not just going to mix together. Now, again, this is a game. You can obviously be like, hey, who cares? The gameplay rules are the same. Now, these lines don't match up exactly, but you can kind of, figure it out. But that's definitely one thing that's going to happen, is that the tiles aren't going to look the same if you try and mix them together. So really your 2 options, I would almost say, and I've said this in the other videos, is either you play all in marble and you just bring some of the fantasy stuff over to it. Like, hey, the the orcs are attacking, or the fantasy zombies are attacking the regular Marvel universe. Or you can go the other way and have the Marvel characters go to the fantasy setting and be like, hey, they went to the past, or it's a movie set. The zombies appeared on a movie set, something like that. If you want to mix them, you could utilize some of the expansions for the Marvel Zombies, like the Baxter Building or something like that, and have like 2 separate sets of tiles, and be like, oh, these 4 tiles are the Marvel, and you have to activate a teleporter to go to the past to try and do something in the fantasy area, and then you can teleport back. And then maybe you have to like protect something in the Marvel zone. So you can't have every character go to the fantasy, so your team has to split up, because you have to keep zombies from getting into like into the Baxter Building, for example, where the teleporter is. So you have to keep some guys kind of defending that and keeping the zombies at bay, where the other guys are then going to the fantasy community trying to search for something. So they're maybe trying to do more of like a runaway, where the other guys are doing a defense. And that could be an interesting back and forth mechanic. That you could definitely do. So another thing to point out is because, again, these guys only have doorways in certain areas. Oh, I meant to flip this one that way. They're not going to line up with the Marvel side either. It's like Marvel's doors are here and here. And those are kind of there and there. But again, even if we take like this one, there's one there, one there. So if I place them on this, they don't line up with the Marvel ones. But, you can, again, just be like, this room goes to this room goes to this room, even if they don't line up exactly, if you wanted to mix them together. But I think you're going to run into a lot of issues with these zones being Z-shaped. But, like, even this one just has a dead end in it, right? So that's kind of neat. Alright, so let's just hop through and look at all of the fantasy tiles here. Let's just look at what different options we have. So you have like this big giant room, which is really cool, with a little thing. Like obviously you have the door right there, probably. Some of these Z shapes. You're gonna get a lot of the same shapes over and over. But yeah, some different things. Just some different ones. Let's kind of flip these. I like this one's kind of neat. Again, it's like a little 4-room thing. So you have different rooms. So you can have them like link off in 2 different rooms. Something like this. You can have a link off up like that. Make a really long dead-end hallway. Or you could put a door down here. That's the only way to get into these 2 buildings, maybe. Something interesting there can definitely be done. Another Z-shaped one. Some more Z-shapes. You can really make it look like you have a street or a village. We have just a line in the middle. Of course, we have our single tile there, which is kind of fun. Always nice to have something like that. Another Z shape. Across, get another 4 squares in there. This one's kind of cool, just a corner. There's also like an anvil and stuff, so you can again use that if you're trying to make a thematic story for your campaign. That's definitely something that's neat to be able to use. Here's a T shape. And then this is a crazy house. So this is actually neat. I love when they do things like this because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tiles instead of 9. And then this one's kind of a different shape, but it just adds some different rooms in there. It's the only one I think that has. There are a couple other ones that have rooms in there, but not all of them. Lots of them are just these big ones. So you have another T shape, and then we have another corner. You definitely add for some interesting different shapes. So that's the base game. One other thing I want to point out is I don't usually go through the tiles too often early, but you can get these. One of these comes in this set. I think one comes in the Green Horde set, which is the other big base game version, which has 9 tiles as well. But these are Vault tiles. So there's special treasures are in there. So what it does is you get these extra doors that go with them. So you have a closed side and an open side. And the idea is you put them on the boards, like on 2 different, same board, different parts of the board. Who knows? But your characters if they can have them closed, they can open them. then they can enter one. Oh, they can enter the yellow tile. There could be something in here. Usually, for Zombicide, there's like a treasure, or it's how you get your special vault treasures. Which are like your really rare, powerful items. You can have to go down there. You can get it. But you could put other stuff in here. Use this as a different mechanic as well. Even this could be like the portal between different realms or something, right? Like, you put one of these in the Marvel zone, one in the fantasy zone, but then you have to like maybe step through this portal, like one extra tile. Even have it like even if you just had it like between them, like here's a Marvel tile, like, so you have to, your character has to step on this, you enter here, then you can exit back out on the other side. And there's a purple one, so you could do a separate purple one if you want to have two different rooms. Or it's just like, it's a secret thing you have to locate, it's an interesting idea. It's a neat little extra tile thing they added that you could definitely do something with. I'm just going to throw one of these tiles out. Two of them. Let's throw two of them out. We'll just throw some of these out. We'll just kind of leave this building sit up like this. There we go. Now we have something to look at. Just kind of set the rest back there for a moment. So we'll do before I go to the next set of tiles, we'll do the Marvel characters. Here's a Zombie Hulk and Zombie Doctor Strange is coming back in time. Here's a Hero, Black Panther, and a Hero Vision. So you can kind of see what they look like in this setting. And then, like, as a comparison, here's, and we will look at more of the minis later, but here's a comparison kind of size-wise for the survivors from Black Plague. Now, they're definitely a little bit smaller, but that's just, I think, it's a combination of the Marvel characters have actually big bases, and the other thing is that I think they started making all of their miniatures a little bit bigger in the later series. But yeah, if you actually kind of look, so here we have a human to a human scale, where they're kind of standing on the same level. Doctor Strange stands a little bit taller. Now, he's not really that much different human size. It's still about the same, because this guy's kind of crouched a little bit. Or if we look at them compared to, like, the Vision, again, he's crouched. Look at her, she's standing up a little bit straighter. And she's wielding some magical weapons. So yeah, she's, a little bit shorter than the Vision, but again, you can also assume the Vision is probably kind of tall. Or versus Doctor Strange here. So it's like, yeah, they're about the same size. I think Marvel characters are still a little bit physically bigger. But then again, they're, big difference versus the Hulk. Just so you can kind of see what they look like in their different ideas. Alright, we're going to circle those guys aside. And we're going to jump through the rest of the tile. Alright, so one of the Zombicide fantasy expansions for Black Plague was Wolfsburg. So this adds a new set of tiles. There's actually just two new sets of tiles in here. But they have, what were these actually called? I think they're just called towers. Yep, they're towers. So they add these tower tiles in here, which are neat. Your characters have to spend 1, 2, 3 spaces to jump in this tower. And then there's different ones. This one has a couple spiraling staircase. We flip it over. We have one that's just a building that then has a big giant thing of a tower instead of half a street. And then the other side's a little bit of a mixture of that. There's a little room down here. It's just kind of neat. So how do the towers work is they work basically like this. And I'm just going to use one of the fantasy characters for this. So if my character is up here on the tower, the idea is that they're elevated up above everybody else. So they can still shoot down into the thing, but they can't melee attack. That's why they have these special borders around it. The only way up and down is this, unless they have the jump ability. So he can't, unless he has jump, he can't just move off this. He'd have to then walk back down. So it gives them an advantage because they can shoot, like zombies are over here. They can shoot off and start taking out the zombies from a distance. The zombies can't get up this way. They literally have to walk all the way around and walk up the thing. So you get an advantage to be able to take guys from a distance, but they could also potentially get trapped up there. The other neat thing is they can can see over buildings that are next to them. So, do I have a good building tile? Yeah, let's flip this like this. So, let me do it this direction, like this. So this guy, if he's standing right here, he can see all these zones. He can see down into the zones. If he's standing here, he can't see into this building, but he can see the street. He's tall enough, he can see over into the street, but he can't see into a building. Because the idea is, if you think about three-dimensional, is that he's probably up here in the building, and if this is like one of our other characters, they're down there in the floor level, and there's ideally like a building over that. So he can see tall enough to see over into the street next to it, but he can't see into the building. You'd have to be looking through a doorway to see into a building. So the towers do add a neat extra little mechanic in there. There's 4 different ones, which some have, again, street levels. Like this one takes up the entire tile, which is kind of neat. So they can be sparsed into the different parts of the map. So that's actually a cool little thing. So if you want to pick up that little expansion, you can get those extra tiles for that. Alright, so that's what we have for that one. We're going to just set that back aside there. We'll just leave that like that. Alright, the next set of tiles we're going to look at is for Green Horde. This was the year 2 or second year of fantasy Zombicide. So this is another full base game, which adds 9 new tiles and adds some fun new mechanics. So I'm actually let's throw these up out of the way and let's look at those new tiles. So here we have an interesting dead end. So we have our building, we have some crops, we have these hedges here. So hedges are a new mechanic for the game, which add a really neat function. So we're just going to have Zombie Hulk over here, and this Survivor character over there. We'll use the Survivor for the sake of explaining how hedges work. Basically, these guys can't see each other. That's what hedges do. They block the line of sight. You can move through them, though. There's nothing preventing you from moving through them. You just can't see what's on the other side. I'm pretty sure zombies don't have any issue moving through hedges. Let me double check that. But the other thing that makes hedges kind of a neat idea is, so if this character wants to move through the hedge, he can. No problem. Doesn't even have to spend an extra action. But he has to summon a zombie walker, or base level zombie in that spot. Because it penalizes him because he doesn't know what's on the other side, because you can't see through it. So you don't know what the what's going to be on their side. The only way to get around that would be if there's already a survivor that can see into that zone. So she can see there's nothing in here, so he can cross over without any issue. So it does make that kind of a neat interaction. Actors standing on towers can definitely see over this. Just roll a die whenever a line of sight. Roll a die whenever survivor crosses without even have a line of sight on a 1 add a walker. Specifically, this one says an orc walker, but you can kind of use whatever walkers you're using. Yeah, so that's how those work. So you have to roll it. So it's not all the time, but you're always taking a gamble if nobody can see. So it might be worth moving people into different positions before you step through. I like the description here. They literally allow survivors and zombies to play a deadly game of hide and seek with each other. So yeah, the zombie would have to, it could walk through if it knows it's there, if it knows the character's there, but since it can't see them, it can't see them, so it's not going to know to go there just because it can see it. But the old Zombicide use noise tokens as well. So like, every single character counts as 1 noise, and then if they do certain actions, they produce noise tokens goes on there. So the zombie will always head, if it can't see anybody, it'll head towards the noisiest thing. So like, if these guys were in this zone and this zone over here, and that's all there was, just the 2 of them, Zombie Hulk would be like, I hear noise in this next tile over. So he'd hear noise, he'd hear this guy, because actually either one are probably the same distance, because it's one distance away. So he's going to hear the noise from this guy. He's going to walk through this hedge and attack him. But he can't see him. But that's kind of the interesting thing there. But if, like, both of these guys were together, they're making the most noise. And then, let's say, for some reason, we have Black Panther up here. Although Black Panther's closer, one space away, these guys are two spaces. They're making two noise. So he's going to, again, move this way and then try and take out these guys. Now, if there was a door here on his next turn, he would go up towards him because he can see him. If there's no door there, for whatever reason, this is just a dead end, they would still go towards the noisiest area. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. Marvel doesn't use the noise tokens, so that makes the shrubbery a little bit. You have to kind of either add the noise tokens or do something like that. You can play around with it. I try and think of when I'm combining these games and doing these different rules is to not create the least amount of brand new rules. If there are rules that are already in the game, use them. If I can add them, like, hey, a character does an attack, you drop a I kind of like the Western version of noise. Instead of having a noise token for certain weapons, and then you can have multiple tokens down. A token produces a bang sound. Like you shoot a gun, and then you put that token on the board. The zombies will go towards that. But if somebody in another zone makes another shot, then the token goes over the most current, noisiest thing. So that's kind of a neat idea there, too. Alright, so we have some more tiles like that. Get some more, zoom back out a bit here. Some more different hedges here. So this one goes around here. You got one up here. The other new thing in this one is water spots. So some of these tiles have water. It's supposed to represent waist-deep water. And then they have like this white kind of like shore. So characters can move freely into these zones and out of the zone like that. That's not an issue. But if they want to move from one tile to the other, it costs an extra action. They're trudging through water. Zombies aren't affected by that. So if you head into a watering area, you're going to be moving slower. Zombies are going to be able to catch up to you quicker. Now, the upside, though, is if you step off into a watering zone from a leg or something, such as this one here is kind of a neat one, these pillars. So if you're up here, you can step off into this area, into the water zone, and it doesn't cost you any extra. You can also climb back out. And if you climb back out, it costs you an extra action to climb out, but zombies are dumb. And again, we're using the Hulk as an example, which isn't the best example for this, maybe. But zombies will move through these without a problem. They don't have any issue with that. But they can't climb up the walls. So if he needs to get there, he'd have to go back around to find a door over here somewhere to get through. So that kind of makes that an interesting mechanic. So it gives him sort of a trap. Your characters move slower, but they can get up on higher spots and kind of use that as a trap for zombies that have to go around. And yeah, it's some neat different effects there. So we had that one. We have another bunch of hedges. We're going to just kind of jump through the rest of these. Some more Z tiles. You have a bunch more of these. Some more bushes. So this is kind of a neat one too because it combines the two. So we have these water spots. We have hedges. So zombies won't see you up here, but they might hear you. And if they hear you, they're going to try and go around the bush or get up there because they can't walk through this hedge here because they're in a watering hole. So they're going to have to go up and around, which makes, you being on there a little bit more tricky. Which is always fun. So there's an interesting U spot. We haven't seen that shape before. Watering hole, some more hedges, some more watering holes on a cross spot. More hedges. So a lot of hedges and water in this one. These are some different rooms which are kind of fun. Some more hedges. A T-square. Like they still kept in some of the regular area tiles, so it's not just like it's all outdoors. But it's a neat mixture because now you can add some outdoory type of hedge and garden tiles to your city area. There's that one, and there's the last one for those. So the last thing I do want to show off, again, usually I'm not trying to show tokens ahead of time, but we get some of the tokens for this that are hedges. So you could place hedges in the tiles, which is really a fun little thing. You get 6 of them. So you can actually place these hedges on the board and make extra different spots or have plant growth wherever you want. So it's kind of a neat idea. This is also something, if you really like this idea, you could add these into the Marvel set. So like if we take, I guess this isn't maybe the best set of tiles for it, but we could have, these plant growths grew on the edge of the tile. Now, Black Panther's hanging out in here and Zombie Hulk's here. They can't see each other because these plants grew up in Manhattan or New York or wherever. So it's actually a neat idea. Again, if you're looking at ways to combine these two games with different things. The other thing that's really fun about these is, so on the back sides, so we have our hedges, we have barricades, which work very similar, except nobody can cross these. So, like, a character can walk through a hedge, but they can't walk through a barricade. This will stop them. But they can still shoot over them, because the hedges block line of sight, so no one can see what's on the other side. If we have Zombie Stranger, Black Panther, if he had a ranged attack, could still attack through the barrier. Just, Doc Strange wouldn't be like, I can't go through this, he'd have to go around. The one exception would be if there's absolutely nowhere else for him to go, if he has no other way of going through. So if, like, this is the edge of the tile, and these barricades were here, and there was no door here, like this was a dead end for some reason. He somehow got in here. Let's just say it's like this. If he had no other way of getting to the character, he can't go this way, he can't go this way for whatever reason. Maybe there's a water tile or something. They can spend their full action to destroy the barricade. So zombies can get rid of them. They just have to spend a full action, but they have to have no other clear way of getting to that character. Usually there's probably some way they could go way around. So you might even debate, like, if there's barricades here, if they can't go this way and they can't go this way. So, like, their idea, they have to go back around and go, like, way around a circle. Like, if they can't see a door, they could go in to get into this building. You could be like, no, they're not going to backtrack that far. They're going to try and go that way forward. If they can move a tile this way and go up, or move this way and go up, they will, but they're not going to be like, I'm going to go way back here and circle all the way around the map. Like, zombies aren't that smart. So they probably just run into it and destroy it. But yeah, those could be added into Marvel as well. Someone threw some spiny barbed wire things up there. We have other barricades from other games as well. Alright, so our last set of tiles we're going to look at is from the Friends and Foe expansion. So this is the last big fantasy expansion that came out. It's currently in retail, I should say, that it ever came out. We'll go over that in just a moment. But we have 5 new tiles. We have some more hedges, some more waterways. This is kind of neat because it's a small expansion that adds, in case you just bought Black Plague, you didn't buy Green Horde, you can still get some of these neat tiles for that. Let's add some more different shapes and waterways. So here's a spot where these guys can drop down, but then they can crawl back up. Here's like a sunken cathedral. Some different spots there. Just some more extra additional tiles with some different shapes, different buildings and stuff. Yeah, so that's what we have for all our tiles. So, I did mention this is the last set that came out kind of currently, because as of this video, the Kickstarter's already ended for it, but, so hopefully, I don't know if it'll be coming out probably sometime next year then, will be the new fantasy series White Death, which adds, it's Asian-ish, inspired. Yeah, there's the word I was looking for. So it has some other, it's still fantasy, but they have some, it goes to some other different elements of the game. A couple new mechanics. There are some ice tiles on there that your characters can like slide across. There's a wall mechanic in there, so you actually build a wall on some of the tiles. Your hero character, your survivors, can crawl up on the wall, and then they can fire down from the wall. Zombies can't climb up the wall unless they get a certain card that lets them like gather up and like a Horde card, lets them hoard up onto the wall. Although there is ways in that game to get around that. One of the zombie bad guys has a way to use corruption tiles to destroy the walls. So that can cause some issues too. But it adds kind of like a defensive mode to the game. So unfortunately, don't have any of those here. But there'll be like one tile. They'll have a bunch of wall tokens. There'll be some stairs on either side, so your characters can get up or down. There's rope tokens, so you can climb up and down those. But it adds like a defense mode to the game, which is kind of a neat idea. So that's definitely something. There's pots of cauldrons and pour oil down in zombies too. But that definitely adds some different aesthetic to that. It'll be interesting to see how those tiles line up visually with these tiles because they're made a decent amount of time apart. So hopefully they keep the same aesthetic and they didn't change them too much. They were trying to kind of upgrade and adapt to the second edition type rules or newer flavor, but they didn't go full out and like reboot the entire series like they did with second edition. So hopefully they fit in, they aesthetically look the same. Alright, we're gonna take... Alright, so I gotta kind of reach up a couple of the boards here, something to look at in the background. I have various Marvel zombies and superheroes out, as well as a bunch of the different survivors. So we're gonna head and look at a couple of these survivors. I'm not gonna go through every single survivor in the game. Unless you do that, you can get my unboxing videos. Also note that I only have for the Fantasy Black Plague Green Horde stuff, I only currently have retail release stuff. I don't have any of the Kickstarter exclusives. So there's always some extra cool little things that come with the Kickstarter stuff, which I don't unfortunately have, so I can't show that. But I will talk about what I do know and what I can kind of get over. Yeah, we get some different neat survivors from this game. We have like this guy's an orc. Of course, we get like a mage. And then like we saw our guy with the crossbow earlier. We get warriors with swords. We also get guys with crossbows, and we have a warrior woman with like a some sort of bow staff, maybe a magical staff, as well as a sword. So you get some different variations on all the different characters. So like I mentioned this in all my other videos, is about how to use these survivors. So before I actually jump into the tokens, I'm just going to talk about that. The couple of different ways to play these, kind of mix these games together, is obviously, like I said earlier, you can just take all your Marvel stuff, bring it to the Fantasy Zone, or take all the miniatures, like the zombies and stuff, and put them in the Marvel Zone. You can even take these guys, just pull the Marvel characters all the way out, and you could just play the survivor characters in a modern setting. You can do that as well, because again, the board and the rules all stay the same that way. But if you want to actually combine them together, the two different ways to play would be or a couple of different ways to play, I guess, would be, if we're going to play as the hero characters versus zombies, you could have one or two players playing as, or some players playing as the heroes, some players playing as the survivors. You just have to have the decks of cards out for these guys, because they need their special items and equipment stuff to be able to swap different to attacks and be able to do more. Otherwise, they're not going to stand as much of a chance as the Marvel characters. Excuse me. Versus just, you could always try playing the same way as the Marvel are, to an extent, because you could just be like, okay, here everyone gets these starting cards. Maybe give them, a starting piece of armor, or like a starting weapon or something. And then that's what they get. But I think the Marvel characters get more skills, have more special abilities or effects in them than the Zombicide survivors do. So they'd still be a little bit limited. That's why getting multiple weapons gives them more options. So you could play duel that way. you could always play, there's just different ways you can do that stuff, just combining the two games together. So the other thing you can always do with these guys is they could replace some of the other miniatures. So we'll go over that in just a moment. Let's actually, before we talk about how we can replace miniatures, let's look at some of our different tokens. So first, we have Zombicide. We just get regular dice. If you get the Kickstarter one, you get some fancy Kickstarter dice, but unfortunately we didn't get them. But Marvel does have these cool black ones with red blood spots and zombie teeth for your one side, your crit, or your critical miss rather. Which are nice ones to replace into the game if you're going to use them. But dice are aesthetic, not really gameplay. And then we have spawn zones. So Marvel starts off with little ones with exclamation points to show where they went on the tile. Some are red, some are green or blue. They're just for different things that open, like you have a green or a blue zone, it might not activate until you grab the blue objective token. Some of these show humans. So the humans would spawn if you're playing as the zombie characters. Some will show zombies, which will spawn if you are playing as the heroes. But they follow the same rules. Now, these guys are okay. I typically almost like most of the other Zombicide spawns better. So here's one for the Black Plague and stuff. So this is a red one. These are usually your starting ones. Yeah, so they're kind of neat. I just love the design. They're just simple zombies on there. But you can get them where they also come in the different colors as well. So these could be also, you can always use these, or you can use these for different modes. If you're going to combine all the games, or maybe have different spawn things that happen. Like, hey, maybe like this spawn zone is going to spawn zombies. This one over there is going to spawn superhero zombies. This one over here is going to spawn shield agents. If you're mixing and matching, some people are playing as, the zombie character. Some are playing as hero. If you're playing some big giant epic game, you could have different things spawn then. So instead of just having one spawn deck that covers everything, you could have, your Black Plague, your fantasy spawn deck, which is going to spawn your fantasy characters in this zone. But maybe like one of the heroes and stuff all got transported there. They're also going to spawn, some of their zombies or some of their shield agents that are coming after them, things like that. We also have an exit flag and a regular kind of goal flag for some of the missions that tell you have to get somewhere. The other thing Zombicide has is they have these, so their regular ones are a little bit darker, but they're Necromancer spawn zones. So Necromancer is a new type of miniature. So normally you have your walkers, which are your slow moving ones. You have your runners, which move faster. Your brutes, which are your bigger guys that take more damage, and then your abominations, which are the big giant guys. The fantasy actually introduces a fourth type. There's always some extra other types specialty types in the expansions, but all the base games usually just have those three. They actually add a fourth type called Necromancer. Necromancer has special rules. When they first appear, kind of like an abomination, you draw them from the deck. You play your, wherever they spawn. So if this is the spawn point right here, this red one, they will spawn next to that. I'll actually grab one. So here's one of our Necromancers. So he'll spawn here now. What he does is every turn, if he can attack, he will attack. But otherwise what he does is he tries to move towards, and this is, not even close to where this would be, but he'll spend each turn trying to move towards the next exit. If he escapes, you lose the game. So it's very important to be watching the Necromancers because it adds an interesting, unique feature because it keeps you having to pay attention to the spawn zones instead of running across the board and just avoiding them. Because that's something you sometimes want to do in the Zombicide games. Is you're like, hey, we need to collect this, and leave. But if you have to worry about Necromancer spawning, he can help win the game. So he doesn't immediately win the game. It's not like he exits, then the game's over. But what happens is when he leaves, then this flips over and it becomes a regular spawn tile. If there's ever 6 on the board, you lose. So if there's already 4 to begin with, he only needs to escape twice. Now, sometimes you can have spawn points that are like, 2-3 zones away. So if he spawns one of them, he's going to get to the exit very quickly unless trying. Other times, the spawn zone might be 10 zones away. Like you might have a spawn zone, like again, this is very hypothetical because it's usually on the edge of the map. But like you could have one up there, and he could spawn. We'll drop back there. If he spawns down here, now he has to try and get up there. Now if there's doors here, he could walk, through this door and go up to that building, and then it flips over. The upside is once you eliminate one that's on the board, you can then choose to eliminate a spawn zone. It can be either the Necromancer's one he just summoned next to this other one, or it could be in one that's later on. So if like this is the front of the board, and you don't really need to do anything over here, and you're trying to collect stuff that way, you could eliminate a farther spawn zone. So they actually kind of have a neat ebb and flow. They'll spawn more zombies when they appear, so eliminating them is necessary to not end the game because they have too many spawn zones out. But it also changes, you can also eliminate one and you can get rid of spawn zones that are in different spots of the board, which may help you out. If you're trying to get to a certain area, you can shut a spawn zone off somewhere else. In White Death, which is the new fantasy one coming out, they actually have corruption tokens. So those necromancers work differently. I don't have like the thing, but I have a little like big like circle that goes on the board, which is a green corruption token. If you watch the Invader or if from like the sci-fi one, it's sort of like the mold tokens. But what they'll do is they'll start in one spot and they'll be trying to get to a certain objective somewhere else on the board. Every turn the Necromancer moves that one more forward. So instead of him trying to leave the board, he's sitting there trying to spread that corruption. So your goal is going to get to him, kill him, so he stops spreading this corruption. Because it will break down walls, so that zombies can like move through buildings quicker without having to look for doors or go around barricades and stuff like that. So Necromancers add a very interesting extra element to the game. Now, you could potentially play a game without using Necromancers if you don't like that rule. This might also be a fun idea that Marvel could adopt in the future. Is a very similar idea of having a character that comes out that spawns more characters, and then does something. Like, my initial thought was like, so we have like 2 boss characters in the Marvel. We have Thanos and we have Red Skull. And I know Thanos is trying to do his stuff, and I know Red Skull is doing stuff. But it'd be neat. I don't remember. Maybe Red Skull has a similar idea because he does come with Hydra agents, and they're technically the Necromancers aren't zombies. They're treated as zombies for all game effects, but they're actually like humanoid or whatever race they are. Things are not actually being zombified yet. They're basically evil people. But yeah, you can see something like Red Skull doing something like that. Maybe Doctor Doom summoning Doombots. Or I've mentioned in other bits like Mole Man summoning Moltoids. That's them generating specific characters though. But that could be an idea. I'm trying to think if there's another character that would do something like that. Like, if you go way out into a stretch for Marvel, you could do something like the Fangalix. You could have like a Fangalix come and they're gonna spread Fangalix across the board, and then like the characters have to try and like not get caught in it and stuff. So they're neat concepts. Just the Necromancers being able to add more things that could come out, and then you have to try and focus on defeating them so they don't make the situation even worse. But you don't know which spawn zone they're gonna come at because they come with random spawns. But yeah, so that's definitely something. And then there's a bunch of different colors on here. So like we had, that one's a brown one. Here's the other one. So this is a blue one. Of course, this one is an orc necromancer. That's a human necromancer. Because they're from different sets, different expansions. But they have different colors, and that way, if they start spawning, if you get multiple that come out at the same time, or of subsequent turns, you can see there's different spawn points down. So that's kind of cool. That's a definitely neat, different thing that the game does. Alright, so next kind of comparison thing we're going to look at are objective tokens. Zombicide Black Plague in that fantasy just have X's. She put these X's on the board. Characters have to go discover them. You know, might find an item, might find something different. You know, might have to use it to trigger open doors. You can flip them over. Nope, that one's still red. That one's blue. That'll activate your blue zone. You know, like we have like the green one here. That might activate the green spawn zone, or it might open up a green door or blue door. Does different things, or it might be you have to collect the blue and green objectives. So you have to check all 6 of them. 4 of them are red. And then Marvel does the same thing with crates, but we have Tony Stark crates. We have some that flip over, they're still red, some are blue or green. So they're kind of a neat thing. And here's how something you could even do is, if you're playing a game, you could have, like, red X's out are literally like things you have to trigger or find that way. And then the Tony Stark crates, if you're mixing them in there, could be where items are, like special items. We talked earlier about the vault you could go into. You could have just vault items in here if you don't want to have that special thing. So if you're playing with like your survivor character, they have to find an actual crate. And then they find the crate, they get an item. But if they have an X, it could trigger something that happens. You know, I actually thought this is like a neat gameplay idea. Is you could have a thing if like somebody steps on this, instead of having to search as an objective, just if it gets crossed, something happens. It could be you flip it over and then, oh, now the blue thing is going to activate. You don't even get an option to search it. It just automatically happens. It could be a trigger that does something else, like maybe it springs up like we had our barricades, which are like the spiky traps. It could be like, oh, if someone crosses that, it springs a barricade up on the other side. You know, like, it was like a secret trap. They didn't know it was going to be there. You know, but then you could, you know, trigger, you know, that might be actually a little bit more fun if you have, like, maybe you're playing player versus player type of stuff. Like, again, someone's heroes, someone's zombies, or even zombies versus survivors. You know, that might be an interesting thing, because then the hero characters could be like, oh, I'm going to trick the Hulk to walk in here, and then one of them tokens would pop in there. Now he can't get through that wall. You know, but you could have, like, the human players set traps up around the town, so the zombie character's player doesn't know which one's which. That could be kind of an interesting idea, too. Different things like that would be kind of fun. But that's just different stuff you can do, because they're a little bit more generic. Then the last similar token are doors. So, again, we point out these guys don't have any doors. So normally if they don't have doors, there's no way to get in there. But you can put doors into these maps. So that if a character gets over, in the Zombicide game, they usually have to have an item to break open a door. Let me see if I can grab an item. Whoops. If I can find one here. Everything I'm grabbing is nothing I actually want. Alright, just grab a stack here. Yeah. So, they'll actually have a symbol there. It shows it. They have a die. And you have to roll a die. I think you have to get 4 or higher. Then to break the door down. So, like, this character can't just enter a door. Marvel, I think you just spend an action to enter a door. They do have some that you don't have to roll dice. This axe just opens the door, but it makes noise, and that's again another Zombicide thing, that fantasy thing that the Marvel doesn't have. But yeah, you have to have usually some sort of melee weapon to open a door. Marvel characters can just open doors, and I'm taking the assumption supposed to be that they're all strong enough to just break a door down, versus a human character can't. But if you break a door down, you flip it over. We have red doors, green doors. So the Marvel ones look very similar. We have our green and our red. And then if they flip over, they just look like they're broken. Just different artwork styles, pretty much. Kind of use whichever one you sort of want. Could be a neat thing if you're combining it, because one thing you can do with these door tiles is you can have a door here saying, hey, zombies can enter here. And with the zombie side, when you enter a door, you spawn in these zones, you spawn extra zombies in. But what you could do is then have a second door here. So if my survivor here opens this door, he comes in here, you're going to spawn here and spawn here. But you won't spawn the rest of the area in the corner because there's still a closed door. And what you could do is if you have the marble one, you could put interior doors being a different tile set. Just maybe just set them off a little bit differently. You know, just something different you could always do. Or if you just need more different colored doors. Alright. Then the last tokens we have for Fantasy Zombicide are Dragon Bile tokens. So there are special cards, which I want to look at these, called Dragon Bile. So it's a spending action, discard Dragon Bile from hand, put a Dragon Bile token within range of 1 to site. So all the Zombicide games usually have some way of, have some card you can play that does, it blows up at one tile, and it kills everything on the tile. Like Modern usually have like a dynamite or something like that. I know the Western specifically has dynamite. The sci-fi one has, I think Modern might have like a grenade or something. I forgot what it has. Molotov cocktails. They have Molotov cocktails. You throw a cocktail, it sets the ground on fire. Western has dynamite, which has its own little extra rules to it. Invader, this sci-fi one, has thermite grenades, and they have another different type of grenade they can throw. This one has Dragon Bile. So this one works a little bit differently. There's all the rest of them. You throw them to that spot, and it blows up whatever here. So even if I had 2 big guys in here with 4, 5, 6 health each, you know, whatever, if you threw one of them room clearing things, it kills everything there. The problem is if this guy's in here too, it'll kill him as well. It just eliminates everybody in that tile. How Fantasy works is you throw these Dragon Bile tokens down. So instead of having 1 card that does it, now you have to play 2 cards. Because then what you have to do is play Torch or use a fire weapon or magic spell. It says, spending action, discard Torch from hand, select Dragon Bile within 0 to 1, angle out of sight, and resolve Dragon Fire. So when you do Dragon Fire, then it flips over and there's an fireball that you set the oil on fire essentially, and then it kills everything in there. Now per standard rules, then that's eliminated at the end of the round and it clears. What some people like the home rule do is that stays until the survivor does it during their turn. It stays until the end of the zombie turn. So that means if you eliminated Hulk here and Doctor Strange is still here, his next turn, if he has to move, if he has no other option, you can only see that guy, he'll move into that flame and kill himself as well. They let it stay up for 1 turn to show it rages, to kind of get zombies there. So either you have them say either they move into it and it'll automatically kill them because they're too stupid to go around it. Maybe that'd be fine for walkers, brutes, runners, maybe not abominations, or like necromancers. Or you could just say zombies see the fire and won't walk into the fire. So maybe it like prevent, if that's their only direction to go down this hallway, they just won't move that turn. They could cancel their actions. That could be an interesting extra gameplay element you can play. The Torch also has a thing that you can draw 2 cards with searching. It doesn't really help Marvel, unless you want to use that search action and trade it in for like traits instead. But that's something you can do. Now, they do have another one, the other side of some of these Dragon Ball tiles that have a blue circle in there. There's no game rules for that. I even looked it up online on like Board Game Geek. There are actually no rules for this. It looks like there's probably just an asset or a rule that got cut from the game. So these could again be something you could use during the games for like, hey, here's a mystical portal that'll teleport you from one thing to the other. We mentioned earlier when we looked over the tiles, you could use like the vaults as a way to travel from like one world to the next. You can use these portals. Put 2 portals down, one fantasy, one in the Marvel Zombies universe, Modern City, and you have to enter this portal to transport. But the thing would also be if that portal is always sitting there, look, zombies can travel through it too. So so that might be an interesting, different way to be like, oh, character doesn't sit around kind of guard that. All the zombies are just going to follow you to the other world. Maybe then you can get around them, but once you get to the other world, you're going to have more zombies there. So that could just be something different. Or like I think other people said, I think the other rule, there might be like one card or something that has a force field effect. So you can always put it on there like, hey, if this gets cast on a guy, they have a force field for a turn. So zombies can't get in there or hurt them. That's another option. Additionally, with the fires, you can always just play a thing like you're playing Marvel, where you're not going to use the deck of cards and have those cards sitting around somehow. What you could do with that is have these out just on the board somewhere, like in their blocking zones. Like I said, zombies can't walk through the fire, or dumb zombies like walkers and stuff, walkers, runners, and brutes might walk through it and die. And you could have these set up around the board to begin with, or look, we got tokens you have to trigger, and it set a fire ablaze somewhere. Or it you could do something like that. You collected this token. Now I get like one action to set this fire down somewhere. I can spend one action to place it this way, spend another one to place it. Like you just gain that as an ability somehow. So that's definitely different things you could do with that. Alright. Whew. Okay, so that's all of our main different tokens. The only token I didn't go over was in Marvel. Has like the Avengers sign, which you could throw. You get kind of pointed out in the other games. Because they have other objects sitting on the board that you could pick up and throw. This game doesn't really have that. But what it does have, before I get to zombies and stuff, is we do have, we get to the other miniatures, we do have the Trebuchet and the Ballista. I think there might be one more, or it might be one of these are just duplicated in one of the Kickstarters. So, these are called Siege Engines, and they add some extra rules. So I just grabbed the cards on the back, so show which ones are which. And they have some different effects here. So if you have a Trebuchet, which is this big, giant, catapulty looking thing, it says target zone at +2 or the Horde. No line of sight required, accuracy +3. If any survivor has a line of sight to the targeted zone, 3 actions to fire or 1 to move. So you can spend 1 point or 3 actions to either move this one zone to lining up better, or you can spend it 3 to fire. Then when you fire it, you can either do scatter shot, grape shot, or fling a boulder. So if you do any one of them, they can go 2 range. So they have to hit at least 2 spots away, and that's where they start. But then they can hit anything in a line of sight. Scatter shot, you roll 6 dice, but you only need to. Grape shot, you roll 3. Boulder, you roll 1. So basically, scatter shot, you're shooting 6 things out. Grape shot, you're shooting 3. Boulder, shooting 1. But they also do the damage in that order. Scatter shot are weaker with 1. Grape shot does 2, and the other one does 3. But they each have an accuracy of 4. But if somebody else can see the object, it drops it down to 3. So what's that kind of mean, and what's that kind of neat about? I'm gonna back my camera up a little bit and get a bigger idea of the board here. So it says no line of sight is required. So I could have my Trebuchet right here. And let's say a Hulk is way over here. So this guy's standing here, and she's going to try and fire on the Hulk. I would get to roll, because unless he's 2 squares away, I get to roll dice for how much I want to do. Being that he's a bigger character, I'm probably going to want to be able to do the 3 damage. But the difference there would be, it might not work as much for those guys because, like, for example, the Hulk actually probably has 5 health. But let's just say I'm attacking. Let's put Doctor Strange over there instead. I'm trying to throw a bolt. I'm trying to throw something at Doctor Strange who has 3 health. So I probably want to fling my boulder. There's a bunch of walkers. I could scatter shot, grape shot, maybe take out runners or brutes. But I have the boulder, so I did a roll 1 die. Since this guy here can see Doctor Strange, I only have an accuracy of 3. So as long as I roll 3, 4, 5, 6, I do 3 damage to him. So that's kind of a neat idea, right? You can shoot this thing at a distance and try and take stuff out. But you can also move it if you need to. So if, like, he gets too close, he's like right here. Oh crap, he's gonna hit me. You can spend all 3 actions to wheel this back one. Now, if you have a 4th action, you wouldn't be able to fire. It says 3 actions to fire or to move one zone. But what could happen is if you have another guy right next to you, you could run over and he could fire it. So it's a different thing there. Alright, then the other one we have is the the Ballista, which has a very similar ID. Fires at every zone in a straight line. No line of sight is required. Make separate rolls for each target. Accuracy 3 if any survivor has sight. 2 actions to fire or move one zone. Any target hit is killed. So it has to be at least 1 space away. You roll 3 dice. It has 3 or 4 accuracy, but it kills everything in a zone. So what makes that one really fun is basically like this. These guys are firing this. They roll enough damage, because they'll go all the way across. They'll kill everybody. But they roll 1 for each one. They roll for Hulk. Oh, Hulk dodged it. Hulk good, got out of the way. And then you roll and you hit Doctor Strange and it kills him. So it's kind of neat. They're just extra little tools. So they kind of work like, hey, we have this, which is an extra token that sits on the board, which does additional effects, has things. This is kind of the idea. They just made 3D miniatures. I would love for a 3D, like a little 3D Avengers sign. That'd be kind of neat. Or, in the X-Men set, they have the Sentinel hand. That would have been kind of neat, too. It would have been a little bit harder to show that being damaged, though, because both of them, they flip over. Like the Sentinel hand, I could see how you could flip it over, like have one side of the hand. The Avengers Tower, you almost have to make it like just like a flat 3D token that had like a regular and busted side. But even still, that would have been kind of neat. Alright, so that's some different tokens we have. Different items are kind of neat to bring into the game. Again, this is ideas that Marvel could possibly add into this later if they add more expansions or do a second season. Some of the scientists came up with different weapons. They have like a pulse ray gun that's basically the Ballista, or they have, they have Colossus throwing Wolverine as a fastball special, like a trebuchet. That's not what he should be doing, but that would be a funny thing, like little actions, like here's a special action zone. This is the fastball special zone. A character can, throw another character, but only from that spot. Or if you have, that'd be kind of a neat thing. Alright, so next one I'll look at are companions. So, Fantasy Zombicide has some pet companions. This is in one of the expansions, the Friends or Foe expansion. Now, each Friends or Foe actually comes with 6. They come with 2 of each sculpts, but 1 in a dark color and 1 in a light color. So you get a wolf, a dog, and a bird. So I'm going to just kind of look at some of their abilities here. So what they basically do is each one has different effects when you play them. Like the wolf here, which have the 2 different colors for them, so you can pick which. So you can actually have 2 out at a time. Vatan and Lucifer. But they have the same effects. But this guy just moved 3 zones per move. He has a low profile, so if you shoot into the zone, you don't hit him. Slippery, he can move out quick. If he's with his handler, so whoever controls him, that guy gets 2+ dice. So what's neat about these guys is, we'll put him here. If she owns him, as long as they're together, your character gets 2 extra dice for melee attacks, which is really cool. So this kind of works like the bystander characters do for the Marvel. If you're running around, so like we do have, let's look at some of them. We have Thunderbolt Ross and Okoye. If like Black Panther's running around with Thunderbolt Ross, he gains a bonus for having Thunderbolt Ross. He gets like an extra bonus to, I think, ranged attacks. And this character's gonna now get 1 per wolf. So they're kind of neat. You could get animals versus the human idea there, which is a really neat idea. The only thing is that these guys obviously have different backs and stuff, but you can always just have them played out or have them as tokens or something. Like maybe they're hidden in a door, you rescue them, you get their card. they're already on the board. Maybe you can already see which one they are, you know. So that could definitely be a neat idea to do that for bystanders. You know, have these animals in there. What's also neat about them is the human survivors typically, if they're not with the hero, they'll try and move on their own to get to the exit and do stuff. Some will have combat abilities, so if there's a zombie around, they will attack it, but otherwise they're going to try and run. These guys, you actively just spend an extra action to control, and they can do their own attacks, which is really neat. So we do have the cat birds, which also have 3 zones per move, bird's eye view, so just different skills on there. The handler gets max range and bird's eye view, which lets them basically not have to, gives them better line of sight. But it has a different attack. And then the dog is Magog and Gog, which +3, they can search for stuff, they get an extra die for melee. And then they have their own attack. So it's kind of cool. You can get these little pets that you can then take around. So if you want animal familiars, you can definitely do that. Again, Marvel could adopt this in a second season. They did this with Marvel United. Took three years of it, but they added the Petted Vendor as companion little miniatures. Although the Marvel United characters are a lot different size than these, so they probably wouldn't fit in with this game. But they could add that in there. You could easily see that, like Hawk. You could have Red Wing in there in place of this, or like Squirrel Girl. You could have like Tippy-Toe, or you have Jeff the Shark, Lockjaw for the Inhuman characters, and they could each have their own special little abilities. But because they're also super pets, things, they could also go off and do stuff on their own, which would be a neat idea. And they also could even work to like having some of these characters being like, again, if you had Red Wing, you could be like, if he, like Falcon could have an ability that says if Red Wing's here, he gets this extra ability or something. But yeah, that's definitely something different you can do with those characters. Alright, so what we want to look at next are zombies and zombie miniatures and all that fun stuff. So just to refamiliarize ourselves, with the Marvel Zombie base game, you're playing as the green zombies, and you're fighting shield agents, walkers, runners, and brutes. All this have different names in the Marvel set, but that's who you're playing as. So one thing you could swap out, and this is one thing I've mentioned in the other videos as well, if you want to take the fantasy characters, instead of playing as them and having all this different setup, you just want to play Marvel characters. Like, I just want to play Marvel, but you want to be in the fantasy setting, you could swap out your walkers, who you generally have a lot of, with a bunch of different survivor characters. So that way, I'm fighting guys with swords and bows and stuff, instead of, shield agents with a baton. Or if you figure these guys are a little bit more powerful, they need more health, you could swap them out for the brutes instead, and be like, walkers, runners, but then like these are like just typical little shield agents that are kind of running around, and then your bigger guys are your warriors. The third option would be keep all 3 of these guys, swap these guys out for the Abomination. So instead of having the big giant monstrosity characters that usually have 3 health, do extra damage, instead you're fighting seasoned warriors that are running around. The Marvel one, it would be instead of the Marvel characters. So instead of summoning Vision or Black Panther to fight my zombie Hulk, you'd summon these guys. And that could be a way if you're like, I want to play the zombies fighting against the human characters, I guess, but I don't want to have to eat other Marvel heroes. So you could summon these warrior guys instead. They just wouldn't have the special abilities that the Marvel characters have. They'd be more just general Abomination, so it might be a little bit easier to beat. That's definitely one different way you could go about it. Of course, then your other option is playing as the superheroes in place of your survivors and fighting the hordes from Fantasy Zombicide. So from Black Plague, the base game, we get kind of like peasant or villager zombies. Nothing too terrifying. Those are walkers. Then we have a couple of different runners here. And then we have our brute. And there are a couple different more models in each of these. I just grabbed a few just to kind of show them off quick. So these, would be your equivalent of your other guys there. So you have just regular peasants or villagers that have turned into zombies. Or you got the abomination here. It's like a guy, big brute, probably a prisoner, which has a hangman use on. You kind of compare these guys to the Marvel. So their Marvel characters are a little bit bigger. Like Hulk, this is much being exaggerated, oversized human. Hulk is a little bit bigger. If you compare like a regular villager to the Vision, he's not too much different. Vision obviously looks bigger just because he's standing on stuff. And I think they're just a little bit physically bigger characters. But they're not that far off, like even against Doctor Strange. Like, Doctor Strange maybe a little bit taller, his arms are a little bit thicker, but like, there's not such a big contrast that they look completely out of place or anything. Again, the Marvel characters get the big bases, but even if we compare, a Shield Walker to a Fantasy Walker, I think their bases are bigger too, so that makes a difference. But yeah, they're a little bit bigger. Like their head sizes are about the same and everything. I think they just physically made them a little bit thicker characters. But yeah, so that's definitely neat thing there. So you can add in, those guys are from Black Plague. And then we had the Necromancer, which we mentioned before. Just kind of like an evil human mage. And then Necromancers get their own card here. So like when you summon them, instead of summoning a zombie or a thing, you'll summon a Necromancer. It just says Spawn Necromancer with its spawn zone. All Necromancers are in the board getting extra activation. So that's why you also want to take out these guys as quickly as possible. Because they'll just, not only do they advance, they let everyone else go quicker. You might be like, oh, I got an extra turn where that guy's going to get to the end. I can get him during my next turn. And all of a sudden he activates one extra time, which is always bad for you. Alright, then in the Green Horde expansion, which is the second big Zombicide base game, we get to fight the new type of characters. We fight the orcs and goblins. So these are also zombies, but instead of humans, now we have some little orcs here, and this one's a goblin. So there are different shades of color to tell them apart. They work the exact same. Those are your walkers. Here's your runner. Who's a goblin as well. I think this might be an orc runner. And then we have orc brute here. Again, a little bit bigger. But yeah, they follow the same exact, like, for the purpose of gameplay and stuff, they play the exact same. We do also have an orc abomination, which is just, this guy's a lot bigger. So like, you compare him to the human one, like standing up, he's about the same size, but he gets a little bit more comparison size to the Hulk very easily, because orcs are obviously bigger than regular humans. And then we do have an orc necromancer as well. Now, if you get all the Kickstarter stuff, there's a bunch of other, there's a couple other new models in there. I don't remember what all of them are. I know that some of the other additional ones are like crows and some things like that. We have some other neat ones we're going to look at in just a second here. But there's also a lot more necromancers. So like, these games have like very specific necromancers, or very generic necromancers that just come out. We just have the two of them, one for each set. They just come out, they do their thing, and that's it. The Kickstarter exclusive packs and stretch goals will actually have necromancers that might have extra special abilities. They might summon something else or do extra damage or different things like that. They have extra game mechanics. Plus a lot of the guest artist packs, a bunch of those characters are also necromancers and stuff, which are really cool. So the other thing, the orcs, and which they're, even though they're goblins, they're all just called orcs, they do is they have special cards, and I don't usually show off these summoning cards for this, but they have assemble the Horde cards. So what this means is on this, if they have this little picture here, if you're in the red zone, you'll summon 3 orc fatties. Now they're called brutes. They changed how they were called. and then you were set. You'll summon them, but you also put one of them in this special horde spot. This goes off to the side of the board. It's just to show like these are gathering. So now, like the human peasants, the idea is they're in the village, they're already scattered there. The horde is supposed to be like these guys are they're encroaching, they're coming in. So some of them will still maintain that mindset of like, hey, we attacked as a giant colony or group. Then you draw a card at some point later. It says enter the horde. It says all zombie miniatures contained in the horde spawn in the zone. Don't spawn more zombies in the building. The spawn step ends here. So what happens is when you draw this card, you whether it's the first spawn, second spawn, third spawn, whenever you hit this, all the zombies that were in the horde, which could be 1, could be 10, depending on how many of these you've drawn, how long it's taking to draw this card, they all come to that one spot at the same time. So instead of maybe drawing, one or 3 cards, you might be getting 5, 6, 7 zombies of all different types. Some walkers, some runners, some brutes, some different amounts of each. So it's kind of a neat idea. Again, this is something that'd be really cool if you kind of had, you could see like Marvel doing with like if they added that type of thing for like maybe the hand ninjas or like Hydra or something, like hey, they have a rule where they can gather and then all pop off. The only problem is because it's built into these cards, you'd have to print brand new cards for all of them. But you could always just play your own rule. Even if they just made like a horde type card to add into the game, then you could always have it be like, hey, every time you spawn something, you put an additional one off to the side. Then when you draw the horde card, everything comes. Or even if you didn't want to, again, you just want to use the components from the game, you don't have to make new stuff. You could just be like, hey, instead of summoning abomination cards or superhero cards as it would be, or the super zombies and the Marvel one, you could just be, hey, when you summon one of those instead, that's when you summon your horde. So it's like all of a sudden a rush of guys coming in instead of one. So it's just an interesting idea they added to the game. Alright, so then the next thing we have are Tainted Zombies. So Tainted Zombies, I just stabbed myself. These guys are sharp. So same model here, but just two. They're bright neon green. And then there's an Abomination. So there's only Walker levels and the Abomination level. But yeah, they have... Oh, which one did they come in? They came in... They also came in the Friends and Foes set, I believe. With the animals, yes. So they have a special rule attached to them, which is... I just want to make sure I read this right. So it's, they have Tainted Blood Spray. So, traditional or classic Zombicide had these guys as well, tainted characters. So what they do are, they're treated as walkers for all purposes. They're also treated as orcs. So if anything's like referring to orc stuff. So they have horde cards as well. What happens is if a survivor kills them with standing in a zone, they get a single hit inflicting 2 wounds, although they can use armor. So basically they explode and they do damage. I think the original ones in Zombicide only did 1 damage. These guys are saying they do 2, but I think that's because this game also introduces armor cards. Yeah, so that's definitely crazy there. Then the Abomination has the same idea, except you're supposed to do 3 damage if you kill it. So the idea is if you melee attack these guys, they pop and explode. Or, basically they're explode when you kill them. They'll do damage to anybody in the zone. So you want to try and range attack them. Only melee attack them if it's absolutely necessary, because they're going to do damage. If there's 2 or 3 in there and you kill 2 or 3, you're going to take multiple things of damage. But they add a fun, extra unique element to the game. Alright, so that's those 3. Then we have some special ones. From Wolfsburg is the name of the game. We have Zombie Wolves. Now, some of the older Marvel, or some of the older classic Zombicides also had wolves as well, so that's why they brought this back. And they have the Wolf Abomination. So the big thing with the wolves is they're like runners, except they get 3 activations instead of 2. So like a runner's gonna, potentially move, or attack, or do some combination of them, move until they can attack. The wolves are gonna do that 3 times. Sorry, the runners do it twice. And then these guys will do it 3 times. And it makes them a lot more deadly. They're gonna cross the board quicker. If they're near you, they're gonna attack you more. So you just need to deal with them quicker. Yeah, that's pretty much how that works. Nothing extra special, just kind of different things there. Kind of scooch those guys off to the side. Then we have one last set that came out, which is No Rest for the Wicked, which is going to add a couple of new types. We have zombie rats. So little swarms of rats here, which have special abilities as well. Which, let me find them so I can make sure I read what they do. So they're 1 damage. They do 1 damage, like everything else. But they get an extra activation each time a zombie rat is spawned. And they move up to 2 zones per activation. But when they move, they don't get, not like a runner, they don't get 2 extra activations. So I'm just going to scoot all of these guys off the board. And we're just going to get all of these guys off the board. So we have less to focus on. But yeah, so what these guys do then is... scoot my camera. So, I just move, go away. So if these rats are going, and they're going to move up to 2 spaces. So they see Black Panther, they're going to get 2 spaces of move action, like this. And then that's their 1 action for the turn. But the thing is, so they're not going to see vision and attack. What's different there is if I had a runner character, a runner gets 2 activations. So they're going to do 1 activation here, and then they're going to be like, oh, there's Black Panther. Then they're going to turn and see vision, and they're going to move towards vision. So the rats do get additional movement across the board. But it's just, yeah, with that additional movement, they don't get a turn. I want to check to make sure the wolves aren't the same thing. No, 3 actions per turn. So yeah, they get 3 actions. Rats just get to move a little bit quicker across the board than everybody else. They also do have another special thing. So rats ignore all obstacles, hindering walls, and preventing movement except for closed doors and walls. So they'll run through water without a problem. If there's a barricade, they'll sneak through the barricades. They'll run through bushes without an issue. They don't care. They just can't go through. They can't eat through a wall or a door. So it does make them a little bit more challenging to fight. Then the other type we have are spectral walkers. So these are, I love the color on these two. These are ghosts basically. So the spectral walkers, so they follow walker rules, except they don't get the extra activations. Can only be killed with ballista, combat spells, or vault weapons, like magical stuff, or dragon fire. So physical melee weapons don't work on them. And then even with this, it's not even ranged weapons. You have to have some sort of magic weapon. So this would be a tricky one for Marvel because there's no distinction on what is a magic attack or not. You could just say ranged attacks if you don't want to go like, obviously you could be like, oh, Doctor Strange uses melee or uses magic, but so is Scarlet Witch. But then outside of that, who else does it? You could argue maybe energy weapons like Iron Man or Vision shooting eye beams, but it depends on what their different attacks are called. And that's just, again, that's getting too much into the nitpicky of, having to, like, remember who can do what. So you might even just house rule and be like, they just can't take melee damage, they can only take ranged damage, which does then even have which characters can do damage to them. But it could be an interesting thing. So before we get to our last miniature and kind of like the wrap up, I just want to show off some of the other cards from this. So they have armor cards. So these would go on your character. If you get attacked, you roll a die. If you get 4 or higher, you ignore that damage. So this is a way for characters to prevent dying in this game. So it gives them a little defense. Most other Zombicide games don't have that. There are some different types of armors. Your shields, stuff like that. Then the other thing they have, besides magical weapons, is they have spell cards. So you have spells you can cast. Some are combat spells, which do some sort of damage. Some are enchantments, which do magical things there. Now, this is, they're kind of neat because they have different effects. So instead of just attacking, you have your characters have essentially an extra skill ability they can equip to do something extra. Marvel kind of has that with the trait cards, which is an interesting kind of combination between these. So you can have like healing, which lets your target survivor heal a turn. Speed, which gives them extra moves. You have stuff like teleport. The ability to have like defense against like different types of zombies, or they can have like magic attacks which can do various damage, or like this one actually suspending action to open a door within line of sight, which is kind of cool. So like I know Marvel has the trait abilities and the bystanders. You have various effects that are similar to these, but this is something neat that this game has that the other one doesn't. And you could maybe even have these be objectives. Hey, you have a stack of these cards laying around. Here's an objective. You know, oh look, we collected this. Look, we learned a spell, and now everyone gets maybe like a one-time use spell scroll if you pick up one of those, or they could pick up a piece of armor. Could be some different things you could do with that. All right, so our last strictly Zombicide miniature. I have another couple to show off after this yet. But we have the Necromantic Dragon, who gets his own summoning things. So he's kind of like an abomination-ish. Obviously he's huge, but like definitely like, hey, I think Marvel Zombies have the Sentinels. These are big giant characters. They can come in. The Sentinels strike a pack. Our expansion. So these are going to be very similar to that. Like, they come in, they do extra stuff, they mess up. Obviously, there's also, to an extent, like, Red Skull or Thanos, who play independently. They're not, like, they have their own little special rules. And then, of course, the gigantic Galactus. But this is definitely a thing like, hey, Fing Fang Foom. Or some other big dragons like that, or larger characters, like maybe I know we have some larger characters, like we do have Giant Man, who's gonna probably be like very close to this. Sentinels, you have some bigger characters that do some different stuff. This guy also has some special rules. So what he does is basically you have his summon cards, you draw him, you summon him. He comes into play, he does damage. You have these special cards here that he gets drawn. And I might not have these 100% accurate. I'm just going to try and remember this off the top of my head. But basically what you do is you're going to roll a die when he lands. He's going to, I believe he does, I'm just going to grab the rules here. I believe he destroys everything. So he has spawning. It says, all zombies standing in the zombie spawn are killed no matter their type. No experience gained. Yeah, so when he spawns, he kills everything. So roll a die on the compass card for each survivor and see the miniature in the spawn zone. If the target is in the zone, push one zone, the corresponding zone direction. So if he lands, he kills all the zombies in the area. Whoever's on that area, so it's on the zone. So if he's gonna spawn here, for example. On this tile that these guys are on. So he's going to spawn here. He'll kill all other zombies in the zone whenever they just go away. Then you take one of these compass cards, which are all the same, and you roll a die. So if you roll if you roll a 3, 4, 5, or 6, it's going to push these guys in one or the other direction. So it pushes them out of the way. So it gets them out of the way, so it's kind of interesting there. It moves them out of the way. And they take, but if they are in the middle, the 1 or 2, they take 2 damage. So it basically steps on them. So that's kind of a neat idea. So he jumps down, he does a ground stop. Siege engines are automatically destroyed. But then the survivor, so if like they rolled a 2, the guy would stay in the zone. You kind of just kind of finagle him in there. But he sits in that area. Otherwise, they push him out of the way. But it's also neat there as it says the survivor or siege engine can't leave the board or cross a wall this way. So instead, it stays in the zone. So if like it tries to shove them into like, so if it's landing out here and it tries to shove them into a wall and there's no door for them to go through, or try shoving them off the board, they're going to get stuck in the area. So if someone's in a tighter area, that sucks. So it says, the Necromantic Dragon is set in the center zone of the corresponding tile, no matter the zone card it was drawing for. So if the spawn zone is on this tile here, he's always going to spawn in the center. He's going to push guys 1 or 4 ways. So he wouldn't spawn right where I'm showing at the time. Let me actually use one of these top tiles. You can see the full thing. So he'll always spawn in the center, and then he'll push guys 1 away. So like these 4 spaces, you're pretty much safe. He can shove you either way. But if he spawned on this side, he can shove you into this wall, which will then keep you in a space. So then the tighter the tile is, the less room you have to get pushed somewhere else. If the center tile is a building zone, so if he happens to land in the middle of a building for some reason, all 4 of these are streets, so you're fairly fine there. You put a rubble card down. So then you flip one of these over, and it becomes rubble. So it basically destroys that building. So it blocks the line of sight, cannot be searched, cannot be entered. It can be left by a survivor that's still on it, though. And according to the quest objective, this situation can lead to defeat. So if too many buildings get destroyed, he's destroyed the village. Then you draw one of his special cards, which are vulnerability cards. So this will say how he can be damaged for the turn. So this actually makes this guy even harder, so you can't just normally hurt him. Again, you have to kind of, like the spectral, you'll kind of have to play around with the rules if you're using the Marvel characters. Because they'll have something that's only vault weapons, the ballista, or magic weapons. So again, Marvel characters don't specifically have them, so you either have to, like, again, maybe usually I said put, like, objective tokens down. They can pick up scrolls that give them extra weapons or items or things like that they could potentially pick up and use. You even have some of the vault weapons, right? You have, like, they search this chest, right? They pick up a vault weapon that was left sitting around. And now they can use that as an attack instead. But yeah, they have some of their, so they have 2 for that. We have some that are just ballista or combat spells. Some that are just ranged weapons, or some that are melee weapons. And this makes him harder to defeat because of his, if you have, Hulk is right there, he's ready to go and of course, but these guys also have big power attacks, so you can implement that some way, like, you have to spend 3 extra damage to hurt him, but then you might just ignore their weakness cards. The other thing the dragon does is, I'm going to scoot him back over here just in the middle because he's cool looking. I think the Kickstarter also has an additional dragon as well. I don't unfortunately have that. But his attack steps, he does this. So if he spews... So during his attack step, when he goes to attack, spews rotten stomach contents into the zone with the most survivors within range of 0 to 1, if there are any. No line of sight is required. The gust can be done diagonally. So he can spew out diagonally. She draws a zombie card, then read the matching line of the current danger level to spawn zombies in a targeted zone. So when he lands, he eliminates all the guys on that zone. But then during his turn, he spits out a bunch of them. Yeah, so that's kind of crazy. They don't get an activation in the same phase, but it's going to spawn. It's basically an extra spawn zone for 1 turn. Then during his move step, if he did not attack, after all the other zombies, then use the standard move rules to define his zone. But he moves 1 tile away in that direction instead. So, whoops, I popped his wing out. So that means if he's here, if there's a guy within 1 space, he'll spew zombies on them. But if for some reason there wasn't, like he spawned at the end of the turn and then you guys ran away, so everyone got away on the next tile, then what he does, if he can't attack, he moves one space to the next tile, and then does the same stuff. He drops down, kills everything, spews more stuff. Just like if there are multiple dragons, there's only one dragon on the board at a time. So I'm guessing the other dragons have very similar effects. But yeah, so that's crazy. We have these big giant dragons you can get as well. Alright, so then the last thing I want to talk about, I don't really need to do a full wrap-up when I grab these. I'll just talk about the wrap-up, I guess, is, yeah, so it's like, you can add the fantasy element to this. Again, I think probably the best way to probably play it is maybe either have just everyone in one zone or the other zone, or like world, or, you know, having like them portals should be kind of a neat idea. Like you can travel between them. Could definitely be an interesting mechanic as well. Alright, so the last thing I want to point out is crossover sets. So I haven't talked about this in too many of the other ones, but I did do another video with talking about not Marvel Zombies, but just Zombicide, and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff. So in White Death, which is the new fantasy series coming out, they added a set for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Clash in Time, which is bringing samurai versions of the Turtles, you know, Mikey, Leo, Donnie, Raph, April, Splinter, Casey, plus Shredder and some foot soldiers, to the fantasy zone. So they're coming back in time. It's kind of like how the Marvel characters could do. You got them just come back in time, but they have different rules. The other guys play like strictly like Zombicide characters, like survivors. So they can be added in there, so it's kind of a neat thing. They also came out with another pack for the fantasy, which was the Thundercats. So we have Survivor-esque versions of like Lion-O, the Chitara. Yeah. And Jackalman. There's a couple other characters as well. Panthro, Wildcat, and Lizardman. So they're just regular survivors. They're basically in place of these guys. They have their own unique weapons sometimes, a couple of different skills. But otherwise they play the same. But this is definitely something if you want to like add survivor characters that aren't Marvel characters, or that aren't just generic sci-fi characters. The Turtle set's coming out, you can add those guys. You can pick up these guys and add them. Even still, there's other just classic Zombicide characters that could be added in, because they're coming with like Supernatural and the Boys and stuff. But those don't necessarily have like the sci-fi setting, but there's plenty of times in comic book characters who travel back in time and stuff. The other thing that's neat about that is we have a new Necromancer. We did mention there being other Necromancers. Of course, Mum-Ra. So he gets his little tiny form that gets summoned on the board. He does stuff. Then a thing can happen. He becomes the big unliving version of Mum-Ra and does a lot. And he becomes an abomination. So it's kind of neat. He switches between being a Necromancer and an abomination. So it gives him a unique rule there. So that's kind of cool there. That's definitely neat stuff you can do as well. I know like modern Zombicide also has the Ninja Turtles, which could be, you know, mixed in with them too. But yeah, so it's kind of neat. There's other crossovers that are obviously going to keep doing, Iron Maiden and stuff. But that's what we have for Marvel Zombies, like Black Plague and the fantasy stuff, mixing in with the Marvel Zombies. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Check out the other videos where I did the other series as well. If you have any other questions, comments, you know, let me know. If I ever get some of the other Kickstarter content and it adds enough unique elements, maybe I'll do a quick follow-up video for some of these. But I don't know if there's going to be enough unique stuff to do a full big video. Alright, see you guys later. Bye.